Hey guys, welcome to the Mom Show. I'm your host, Courtney Doyle, and this is a place I am giving you permission to not have it all together. Hey friends, you know that we're talking about help. I'm a mom who, and today's conversation is for a mom who's saying help. I'm a mom who struggles with anxiety. My guest is Becky. She knows the struggle well. Anxiety has been part of her life since childhood, and she's seen it impact both her and her kids in different ways. In our conversation, Becky shares how that anxiety shaped her identity, how it sometimes came out as anger, and how she's learned to uncover the fear and the lies hiding underneath. She talks openly about mom guilt, the unrealistic expectations we put on ourselves, and the surprising freedom she's found in surrendering control to God. You'll also hear her 4 simple but powerful reminders about God's character, truths that can bring peace when fear threatens to take over. If you've ever wrestled with anxiety, mom guilt, or the ache of letting go as your kids grow, Becky's wisdom and vulnerability will remind you you can still parent well, even in the middle of fear, because God's love is bigger. Let's jump into my conversation with Becky. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Becky has an incredible story for us. I start every interview off with saying, this season we are filling in the blank on help. I'm a mom who. And so would you fill that blank in for us?
Sure. Help. I'm a mom who struggles with anxiety, and my kids also struggle with anxiety.
Now, let me ask you this. Is this something that you started noticing in yourself personally at a young age? Was this kind of adult set on? When did you realize I have anxiety and this is a very real thing for me?
Yeah. I don't know at what age I realized I had anxiety, but
Mm.
from my earliest memories, I know it was there. I grew up in a home where there was a lot of fighting and chaos. And so waking up in the middle of the night, hearing things that no little girl should have to hear, and just the fear of, is this going to be the night our family falls apart? And where are we going to
Mm.
go? And what's going to happen to us? So that kind of anxiety and insecurity. And then when I was in third grade, I had a teacher pull me out of class, and I thought I was going to be assessed for a gifted program. That was like
Yeah.
my healthy self-esteem at that point. But actually, I had a stuttering problem and I didn't even know it. And so she was a
Mm.
speech therapist and she recorded me. And then I didn't even know I was doing it. So then I learned about this problem that I had. All the intentions were good for everyone that was trying to help me, but it snowballed into a full blown stuttering problem I had all through the rest of school, social anxiety, just laying in bed at night, every single night with my stomach just like in knots,
Yeah.
thinking about the next day, anticipatory anxiety, social anxiety. And that just went with me into adulthood. And then becoming a mom, I had so much anxiety. So I don't know, probably like in middle school and high school is when I would have been able to voice that I feel really anxious, don't know what to do with this anxiety.
Oh, I bet. That's so
Yeah.
hard at a young age too, for the stuttering to be identified, which was healthy. It needed to be
Yes.
identified. But then,
Yeah.
of course, it's that feeling of I'm different. Why am I
Yeah.
doing this? That's hard for a young child to process. And then I feel
Yeah.
like once that anxiety takes over, it's really hard to be released from it as well. And so I can
Yeah.
imagine going into motherhood, how difficult that is. And so how has this anxiety, how has it impacted your identity? As a person, let's talk about you individually
Mhm.
first, and then I want to jump into how has it impacted you as a mom?
Okay. So I think the anxiety as I was growing up morphed into a really big fear of rejection because I
Mhm.
began to notice not only my stuttering, but the way other people reacted when I would stutter. And
Mm.
kids would make fun of me. I had teachers. Some teachers were great. Some teachers were just made it worse. And so the fear of rejection was a huge thing for me. And then also a fear of failure. Like, I don't even want to try if I'm not going to be able to do it or I'm not going to be able to be
Mm.
good at it. So that carried over into my adult years. And then as a mother, I think I had such a fear of failure that I really wanted to do a great job. And perfectionism was a big thing.
Mm.
I knew I would never be perfect. I think even when I say that, it's of course I could never be perfect, but I just had such a fear of failure. What if I don't get this right? What if I mess up? What if my kids then don't grow up in the kind of home I want them to grow up in, and I'm not a good enough mom. And it's that's been really core to how I've seen myself, that those fears of rejection and the fear of failure.
Do
Yeah.
you think some of that fear you mentioned earlier that you grew up in a home that was not stable
Mhm.
and you felt like that maybe triggered some of this anxiety in you? Do you feel like that also triggered some of this desire to be the perfect mom because the home you were raised in wasn't ideal?
Yeah.
Great attempt, like, I wanna make it better than what I experienced.
Yes. And I will say, like, my mom was as pretty close to perfect as a mom could be. So I had her as my example, but the marriage ended in divorce when I was in college. And just the communication problems and the dysfunction and even some of the abuse in my home, that was something that I
Mhm.
really did not want to perpetuate. So I found
Right.
the hard truth that I had to accept and confront is that as much as I did not want to become an angry mom, because I grew up
Mhm.
with anger just out of control, that was just my natural default. And what I
Yeah.
found is once I had kids and they got a little bit older, I would lose my temper, I would get angry, and then I would beat myself up, and I was very focused on the anger. I have to just not be
Mm.
angry. But what I didn't understand is that under the anger was anxiety. And the anger was a secondary emotion, but underneath it was the anxiety that, oh my goodness, I am not in control. I am so scared I'm messing this up and my kids are maybe getting on the wrong track and I'm not. What am I supposed to do? If I didn't know what to do in a situation, that was an anxiety that I would express it in anger. That
Yeah.
was a big awareness for me.
What are some of the lies that you've believed about what makes a good mom? Like you just said, my mom's pretty near perfect, but what are the
Yeah.
lies that you believed about what would have made you a good mom?
For sure, the anger thing, like a good mom would never yell at her kids. A good
Mm,
mom would be in control of her emotions all the
mm,
time.
yeah,
A good mom would be the perfect balance of just protective enough, but also fun and carefree so that her kids could experience their childhood. And so
yeah,
I just struggled a lot with usually leaning more on the protective side, wanting to protect my kids from things or wanting to be pretty careful about what kinds of experiences they had or as they got older, what they listened to, what kind of shows they watched, like who they hung out with, that kind of thing. That created some tension for sure during the teen years of me wanting to just
yeah.
protect them.
And you said that the kids also are struggling with anxiety. How do you feel like that's translated over?
So both my husband and I have struggled. He has his own story of anxiety and depression in his life and on his side of the family. I have my own story with our kids. All of them, when they hit the middle school, high school years, were able to tell us that they were feeling anxious. So they did have the
Mhm.
words for that. But something that I think is really helpful to point out is that anxiety will show up differently for different people. So I am very much, if I'm feeling anxious, it's almost always what I am thinking, the thoughts that I'm having, the lies I'm believing that are causing me to feel anxious. But one of my daughters, she can't pinpoint thoughts. It's her body that feels it first. So people who maybe struggle with panic attacks or physical symptoms, they're anxious, but they're not aware of it. And then their body is telling them there's a problem here. And so it doesn't always look the same. And there's two schools of thought. One is that it's our thoughts that lead to our feelings. So we deal with the thoughts, cognitive behavioral therapy. And another thought is it's our body that feels the anxiety first. And so we need to pay attention to our bodies. And I don't think they're contrasting ideas where one is always true. I think it just
Yeah,
depends on the person. So my daughters they're a mix of those things.
yeah.
Yeah.
I had a kiddo that we realized he was having some anxiety issues because it was coming out in headaches and stomach aches.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
we kept thinking he was having bouts of a stomach flu.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait a minute, I've had a few kids. This does not, getting the stomach flu this often is strange. And there was never a fever accompanying the stomach flu. It was it was almost like the stomach episode would start. It would be very difficult for 24 hours. And then it was followed by just like excessive sleep. Like his whole
Mhm.
body had reacted. And of course, we'd have the vomiting or the diarrhea. And then it was like his body needed another 72 hours to just sleep it off. And when it
Wow.
became a pattern, then I started going, okay, what is connected around here? Of course, we started with what are the foods he's eating? Is this an allergy to something? And I'm not catching
Mhm.
it. And then when we kind of went through all the things, ticking off the boxes, then it was like, okay, what's happening situationally? What's happening at school? And it was very easy to start identifying, oh,
Yeah.
okay. And when it was happening, oh, that's interesting that this always starts he would start with a headache maybe on Sunday at church. And at first
Mhm.
I was like, "You just don't wanna be at church. He's just a kid. Oh, I have a headache. I don't wanna be here," whatever.
Yeah.
But then it was because Monday was school.
Yeah. He's
And
thinking about the
so
next day. Yeah.
and I understand what you're saying, that it doesn't always look the same. And I've
Yeah.
interviewed some experts on anxiety, and they've shared that exact same thing, which is
Yeah.
listen to your kids, really do the work and trying to figure out what is causing this physical reaction, or if
Mhm.
they do have the language. Younger kids are not going to have the language. They're not going to be able to look at you and go, I'm anxious. It
Right.
may be a stomach ache. It may be
Yeah.
it could be, like you just said, sometimes your anxiety comes out in anger.
Yeah.
So, what does that
Yep.
look like for a child?
Yep.
So, it's great
Yeah.
that you're pointing out again, look at all of the red flags of why things are happening and what's the root cause of that. In this feeling of anxiety as a mom, you also mentioned in our questions that I'd asked prior to this interview, you mentioned mom guilt. So let's talk
Mhm.
about that. Where do you think this guilt is showing up most for you in this motherhood journey?
Now, so I have 3 daughters. My husband and I have 3 daughters, and they are our youngest is in college, and our older 2 are out of college, and our oldest is married. So I'm in the early empty nest years, and so mom guilt for me, when it tries to show up, it's me looking in the rearview mirror and thinking, "I should have done this," or "I should have done this," or
Right.
on the front end, I feel like it was, I'm gonna it's about control, and it's trying to control as much as what I can so that hopefully this will be the results and we'll be able to this. But the mom guilt thing is huge. And I speak to a lot of moms, and almost every time I am with moms, I hear some version of the
Mm,
mom guilt come up. I remember one time sitting around a table after I had talked about fear and anxiety. And one of the questions was, what is your greatest fear as a mom? And right away, one of the moms said, I'm afraid that I'm a bad mom, that
mm,
I'm gonna mess up my kids. I just said we all mess up our kids in a way if you think about it, because we're not perfect. And then there is a healing that happens as we get healthier and our kids are able to get healthier. The way that I like to talk about mom guilt, I think there's 3 different categories, and this is like a very kind of rational way of looking at it, but the first one is it's false guilt. So there's a lot of things that we could feel guilty about, but when you really ask the question, is there really something I can pinpoint that I did wrong here? And if
mhm.
not, if it's I feel guilty because it rained and we couldn't go to the pool and now my kids are so upset and they're mad at me and so I feel really bad because I didn't take them last week, and we don't have control over the weather, or sometimes things happen.
Right.
So there's false guilt. A lot of moms that I've talked with feel guilty because they haven't been able to provide another sibling for their only child. So they're feeling
Mm,
guilty about their fertility issues and things like that. Then there's what I call true guilt, which is,
mhm,
okay, I really did do something. And that's our friend. That's what we read in scripture. That's
mhm,
godly sorrow. That's okay, I messed up. And we have a path forward with that to be able to pinpoint it and say, I was wrong. I did this. I'm sorry. Forgive me, both to God and to the person we hurt. But then the third category, as I've talked with moms that I've identified, is shame. And shame is just so destructive and takes you from something I did to something I am. I did this thing, I blew up and I yelled at my kid. It goes from that to I'm a horrible mother. My kids
right.
deserve better than to have a mom like me.
Mhm,
I've even heard
mhm.
moms say they'd be better off with someone else. I mean, that is such a dangerous level of shame. But so I just love those 3 different categories, because when the guilt does come, and now, like I said, I'm looking in the rearview mirror and what could I have done differently? But it helps me to be able to say, okay, did I really have a choice in that? Did I really have control over that? Or was I doing what I understood to be best at the time? Is there really something here I can take ownership for? I know how to do that. Or is this shame that is just not at all from God? That's just telling me that
Mhm.
I'm a bad mother. I really mess
Right.
things up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that you've categorized them and looking at what is true and what is a lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yes.
How has your faith, you just mentioned God and scripture, and how has your faith influenced your approach to this anxiety and parenting children with anxiety?
Yeah. My faith has completely is central to who I am. And so even as a young child, I really would turn to God and I would pray the prayers that, sometimes it wasn't even the prayer to pray, but it was just as a kid. Like, honestly, as a kid, I was so anxious. There'd be times I just would pray that I could just go to sleep and wake up in heaven. It's so sad for me to say that, but I was turning to God in my anxiety, even as a child, because I
Wow.
just wanted to be rescued from it. But when I was a young adult, I got into a women's Bible study and it was all about fear and anxiety. And there was the transformation that happened as I surrounded myself with women who were also walking a journey with anxiety and fear.
Yeah.
But really the verse that changed everything for me, it's 1 John 4:18. And it says, there's no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear.
Mm.
And I had this thought like, wow, I have spent a lot of years focusing on my anxiety. Like, how can I minimize it? How can I manage it? What can I do to get rid of this anxiety? And yet, if this is true, anxiety is powerful. But if this is true that God's love is a power and a force that's greater that actually drives out and pushes out my fear, then maybe I need to focus more on, am I opening myself up fully to God's love? What are some of the lies I'm believing about, am I really loved? And so that's what this whole Bible study that I did was about. And I found a lot of freedom from that fear of rejection, which is really my worth depends on what other people think about. That's what that is.
Yeah.
So, with this love, really diving into what does it mean that I am loved by God completely, exactly as I am accepted by Him. Even if I come on a podcast and I don't do a good job and someone listens and says, "Oh, I don't like her." I am still loved by God,
Mhm.
completely loved by God and accepted
Yeah.
by Him. And that's why I'm able to even speak. That was the beginning of my journey of saying yes to speaking. I'd been writing for a long time and I just kept saying no to invitations to speak because I'm like, I can't do that. I stutter. I can't do that. And as I began to just open myself up to God's love, it was like the fear was just driven out. And I rarely even have a problem stuttering now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
had a
listening to you and I'm
dramatic
thinking,
effect. Yeah, had
I'm
a
not hearing
dramatic
that.
effect. Yeah,
Wow.
and same with the fear of failure. So what if I try something and I don't get it? What if I fail? I am still
Right.
loved by God. My worth does
Mhm.
not depend on my performance. It doesn't depend on anything that I do or don't do. So that where does our worth come from? If we are grounded in the love of God, fear it just can't hold on. And I don't mean that to sound easy. It's not easy. It is a when scripture talks about renewing our mind and being
Mhm.
transformed by the truth, that is what it is. It's been a process. And then in my parenting, it's very similar. If now that my kids are older, trusting God with their journeys, it's again
Mhm.
believing He loves them more than I do. So can I trust His perfect love for them that will drive out my fear and anxiety as a mom, all the things I'm anxious about. So I'm still very much in that space of just opening myself up to God's love for me, for my kids. I don't have to be perfect. It's okay if I don't get it right every time. There's a way
Yeah.
to keep going forward in grace. And He loves us, He loves our
Right.
kids. Yeah.
And surrendering that control,
Mm.
allowing yourself to surrender all of those thoughts and all of those anxieties and all of those what ifs and the fear that you're
Yeah.
feeling and saying, "You know what? I'm going to surrender and I'm going to sit in love." That it's hard and it's daily. Sometimes it's minute by minute depending on what's
Yeah.
happening in your home. Are there any like rhythms or prayers or things that you do that keep you anchored in that freedom when maybe anxiety is trying to show up?
Yeah. I'm in the process right now of writing my third book, and it's about
Wow.
trusting God in the messy middle. And my journey the last few years has been it's been a struggle as my kids have left home, just letting go, letting them have their journey. We've walked through some really hard stuff as a family with our kids, mental health challenges, addiction, questioning faith, so many hard things that just make me think, how could this happen? I tried so hard to just make everything be a certain way and the feeling of out of control. But a couple years ago, I asked a friend, my level of anxiety was so great that I could not find peace. There was no Bible verse that was fixing it. I was just plagued by this dread and anxiety of what would happen in our family and with our kids. And I asked a friend who is a little older than me. Her kids are grown, married, but I know that she has walked through hard stuff with her kids. Her kids are not following the Lord. And so I asked her one day, how do you trust God with your kids? And she said, well, I trust him because I know his heart. I know his heart for me. I know his heart for them. He loves us and he loves our kids even more than we do. And as I listened to her, I thought, I don't know if I believe that. And I don't know if I know God the way that I need to so that I can trust him the way that I want to.
Mm.
So that has been my journey the last couple of years is knowing God. There's 4 characteristics of God. It's not a formula, but I'm going to tell it to you because it is helping me so much that when I
Yeah,
take my
please.
focus off of my circumstances, the problems that I see, the behaviors that I see, and I focus on these 4 things, it brings me so much peace. So the first one is that God is good. He's always working for our good. He's always working in our kids' lives for their good. The second one is that God knows. He knows everything, all the stuff that I don't know. He knows everything that has happened in my kids' lives. He knows why they are at the place where they're at, why I am where I am, and he knows how to reach us. He knows what is needed, and he knows the plans that he has for us. So that's the second one. The third one is God is with me, and that includes he hears my prayers, he sees me. All of the prayers that I have prayed, he hears them. They are with him, and he is with me, and he's with my kids. And then the fourth one is he is able to do immeasurably more than we could ask, think, or imagine. So this just blows the lid off of any prayer that I might have. I can't even imagine what God can do. And when I walk through those 4 things, it just brings a level of peace that that's what it means to know God, to know those parts of his character. There's so many other qualities that he is also, but those 4 for me right now are just it's changing my prayer life. I go for walks a lot and I will just go through those 4 things with whatever I'm feeling anxious about because those things are
Mhm.
true about God.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great tool to remind ourselves who he is, how he loves
Yeah.
us, how he loves our children.
Mm.
I remember hearing something similar or a question being asked of me about where God was in the moment. And really, I did some deep work for myself. And that was the question. Like it led me through reliving a situation. And then the
Mhm.
very last question was, where was God? And I was like, "He was there." Okay, where there? Was he just hovering or and really making it very intimate that no, he was holding your hand. He was
Mhm.
right beside you. And then also taking that same picture of him being right beside me and translating it over to my children when they're in a struggle or when they're in a battle and really saying, "Okay, where is God in their lives?"
Yeah.
And I may not be able to be present. I may not be able to protect, but when I can see the picture of him standing or sitting right where they are, no matter where they are, it does give an incredible amount of peace to believe
Yeah.
that and to know that. And so that was great advice from your friend. I
Mhm.
hope it's advice that a
Yeah.
listener is hearing. Like he
Mhm.
hasn't abandoned you and he hasn't abandoned your children, even if you are anxious or you're controlling about it or whatever it may be. Like he's very present of all of the above. You mentioned a book that you wrote and a specific chapter. Will you share with the listeners a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the book I wrote, it's called Enjoy Every Minute and Other Ridiculous Things We Say to Moms. And I've been speaking to moms for 15 years. And so this really was just a compilation of a lot of the topics I talk about, what I hear from the moms when I sit in on their discussions after I speak. And so
Becky, are
it's
you
12,
about to tell
yeah.
us we are not supposed to enjoy every single minute?
I mean, if you can figure out how, then that would be a book to write. But it's
Yeah,
such an
that's the
unrealistic
formula.
expectation, right? Like seriously, some moments are pretty awful and you just get through them. I had a lot of fun in this book, just taking cliches like that or mom advice or myths. So the fourth chapter is on if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And it turned out to be one of my favorite chapters in the whole book because I invited moms. I went on social media and I just asked them to tell me about mom guilt was what I was asking
Mhm.
about. But the way that moms opened up and shared, they private messaged me and they gave me permission to use a lot of their stories. But the anxiety and depression piece of that and what it is
Mm,
like to mother when you are struggling and the pressure that we feel
yeah.
to hide it, to even hide it from our kids. We don't want anybody to know. We might think if my kids see that I'm struggling, then it's going to make them struggle. I had one mom that I'm a good friend of mine that I met for coffee a few years ago. And she is a wonderful mom, a wonderful friend. But she came into the coffee shop and she was all frazzled. And she said, I just got back from the doctor's office. I went to the doctor because I was having jaw pain. And after assessing me, he thinks I have anxiety. She said he thinks I'm clenching my teeth at night. And she's one of those people that is not really aware of the anxiety in terms of her thoughts, but her
Yeah.
body was starting to show symptoms. But she said, I need to fix this. Like I need to fix it quick because my daughter, so she has a therapist she's gonna go see and she's got different things she's gonna try. But she said, my daughter who's a teenager, struggles with anxiety. And she comes to me for help and I'm her rock. But
Mm,
the coming from this place of I can't let her see that I'm struggling because I am her rock. And I listened to her and I just said, I don't think we're supposed to be anybody's rock. I don't think we're supposed to be our kids' rock, really.
yeah.
And what
That's
would
a
it
big
look like?
expectation.
Yes. What would it look like if you were able to, in a way that was appropriate? We don't want to dump burdens on our kids or make them feel responsible for us. But here is what I want to say is the gift of being a mom who struggles with anxiety when you see that your kid is struggling with anxiety instead of, oh no, I tried so hard to not have this happen or thinking I passed it on to my child. It is a way to enter in and connect with them. So I said, what if maybe the next time you felt like it would be appropriate, you could just let your daughter know I'm struggling with anxiety too. And so
Yeah.
here's what I'm doing about it. I've got a counselor. I'm unpacking some stuff that I haven't talked about in a really long time that's come up for me. And here are some scriptures that are really helping me. And here is who I turn to when I am feeling anxious. I turn
Mhm.
to my rock. And she did that. And I just think that's the beautiful thing about being able to let God's power become perfect in our
Yeah.
weakness as moms. And we can walk
Mhm.
alongside our kids when they're struggling and we can identify with them and relate to them because of what we've gone through. Yeah.
I've always found greater success when I've been honest with my children that
Mm.
I'm struggling about something versus trying to mask what I'm struggling. When I started this
Yes.
podcast, the original name of the podcast was Masquerade of Motherhood.
Yes.
And I switched it over to the mom show because it was easier for people to find. But
Yeah.
mom in the mom show still is the acronym MOM for Masquerade of Motherhood. And it's the lies that we believe and the things that we begin to mask
Yeah.
that really become damaging to us as individuals. It can damage our faith and our trust in the Lord. And it does put up these barriers with our children that are unnecessary.
Yeah.
I think age appropriate honesty is
Yeah.
much better than living a lie and living in
Yeah.
secret. And then our kids becoming adults and going, oh, I had no idea. Sometimes it can
Yeah.
explain some things. I mean, let's just use
Right.
the example right now. And I think you know this. I've lost both of my parents in 67 days. Well, I would be remiss to just try to stuff this grief and tell my children I'm fine, right?
Right.
Everything's fine, because I'm not. And so it's a lot better for me to be really honest. And, the older kids are very aware, but I still have a 13-year-old at home. And
Yeah.
so sometimes, like you just said about maybe being angry or being short, or maybe I'm just kind of distracted. It's a lot better for me to be able to then go, hey, bud, I'm feeling this way because mom's very much grieving, or I'm just feeling really sad today about Grammy and Pop Up. And it's amazing how resilient he is in this grief journey with me.
Yeah.
Sometimes he just comes up, like he can just sense it and he'll come up and give me a hug and be like, "You okay, mom?"
Yeah.
And, it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
No, I'm really sad today.
Hmm.
Um,
That's so
and
good.
I don't know if I'm doing it all the right way. I promise you I've done plenty wrong. Like you were just saying about your friend, that is going to open up a communication where her daughter is going to feel very safe now, not just
Yeah.
saying, "Mom, you're my rock. So you can't be anxious because if you're anxious, then I'm anxious." No, it's now a connection that they're going to have and they're
Right.
going to be able to work through that together. Hey, you know what? This makes me anxious. Hey, I get it. That
Yeah.
makes me anxious too. How can we tackle this with tools or therapy or
Mhm.
practices that can help lower our anxiety in these situations?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that example that you gave. And what you're doing is you're teaching your children how to grieve. You're modeling it for them because sadly they will grieve in their lives too. They're
Yeah.
already grieving. They lost their
Mhm.
grandparents. But I think something that I've seen, and my husband and I in marriage ministry have seen this, where couples will say, our parents never fought. We never saw them fight. And then they
Yeah.
think, what is wrong with us that we're
Yeah.
fighting? And I think we can do that in parenting too, where our kids could say, my mom never seemed anxious or never lost her temper. And so what is wrong with me? So we can't normalize something if we don't acknowledge it, if we're hiding it. So to the
Mm.
degree we can be appropriate and share, then our kids will not have, in addition to whatever they're struggling with, they will not have that added layer of what is wrong with me? My mom seems like she doesn't struggle with anything. That's a lot of pressure for kids to feel like they're not measuring up to the standard that, of what their parents are presented in an example. So I don't think that you can lose if you're prayerful about it and you have wisdom in sharing our weaknesses with our kids. I think God can use it for
Mm.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've talked to a lot of moms on this podcast, and it's very interesting that really so many interviews, the how you were mommed comes out. And
Hmm.
so many women, we parent and we mom from how we were mothered. And it's either we really want to be just like our mom because it appears that she did it all right and she was perfect, or
Yeah.
we want to be nothing like our mom because maybe she did it all wrong. And, or in our eyes, right? She did it all
Yeah.
wrong. And so it's finding that balance and becoming the mom that God created you to be and really trying to hold on to what are the, because we're all going to do it wrong. None of
Hmm.
us are perfect
Yeah.
and holding on to what were those positive things and how could I improve on them? My prayer for my girls and for future daughter-in-laws is I want you to be a better mom than I've been. I hope that you take the lessons that I've learned, maybe the positive tools that I've given you, the example that I've set, and then some of the things that I haven't done so great. Hey, but they're only going to be able to do that if you share that with them.
Yeah.
Don't make them kind of, it would be like selling off a business to somebody else and saying, "Hey, this has been a really successful business, but all the tools to how it was successful and all the ways that I failed and don't want to repeat, I'm going to keep in a filing cabinet behind lock and key. Here's my business. Now go figure it out." Like, why would
Yeah.
you not want the next business owner for you to be able to say, "Hey, here's all the things that I really feel like I did pretty good, and here's
Yeah.
the things I wish I'd have done better." Why wouldn't
Yeah.
we do that for our children too? And being real
Exactly. Yeah.
honest, I mess up all the time and I definitely age and maturity, I think. I've gotten a lot better at saying I'm sorry to my kids
Yeah.
when I just blow it. Young mom me would have probably been like, "I'm not blowing it. I'm the mother." And now I'm like, "Man, I am blowing it."
Yeah.
And because I'm mom and because I love you, I'm going to ask for your forgiveness when I don't do it all right.
Yeah. I love that perspective. And what you're really saying is, if I'm working on myself and getting healthier and I'm
Mhm.
modeling that for my kids and my kids are getting healthier, then I have every hope that they are going to be able to do an even better job because we're all growing and becoming healthier instead of being
Mhm.
threatened by that or feeling it's some sort
Yeah.
of a competition or something. Because sometimes another example of that is sometimes parents will feel a sense of failure if their child needs to go to therapy. Instead
Yeah.
of normalizing it to say, "It's a good thing. Yes, let's find you a good Christian therapist and let's just all get healthier. I want my kids to see me working on myself and growing and getting healthier." And they're following that example and they're doing their work too. And
Oh,
it's,
girl. I'm all about a
yeah,
good therapist.
yes, I have a really good one. And you
I
know
am
what?
all
I've been
about a
with
good
her for
therapist.
yeah, I've been with my therapist for 2.5 years, and not long ago, I was like, Is this okay? Like for me to be with almost every week we do these Zoom calls. But I'll tell you what's happening now, especially with my anxiety, is those neural pathways that we have that are just so
Mm.
ingrained in the ways that I've thought forever. I'm starting to have times where I'll think something and think, that's really different. That is not the way that I normally would think about this. And changing those patterns. And it can take a very long time. It takes a lot of practice of thinking differently and doing things differently. And so I'm seeing the fruit of that now. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep going with her.
No. And
Yeah.
sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes I think people think they go into therapy in 1 or 2 sessions, it's gonna all be better. And a
Yeah.
lot of it is consistency and that person getting to know you and that person helping you rework those pathways and
Mhm.
really expose the lies that you're believing and what is
Right.
the truth, especially a good Christian therapist. Like, where's the truth
Yes.
here? And what are the
Yes.
lies that you're believing? I'm
Yeah.
gonna ask you just 2 final questions. I
Mhm.
feel like you and I could continue to talk about this for a minute, but one of the things that I want to ask you, if you could go back and you could speak to your younger mom self, filled with anxiety, you're having these kids, what would you tell your younger mom self? What would you say to her now?
Wow. That makes me want to cry. I think one of the things I would say is you're not going to get it all right, and that's okay. It's okay. You're not supposed to get it all right. And I think I would really want to tell her what my friend told me is you can trust God. You can trust God. He loves them more. And I know you love them so much. God loves them even more than you, and you can trust him. Yeah, I love
Mhm.
that question.
At the end of every show, I ask for you to share with us what you're praying for right now, that we could join in prayer with you and a verse. And I know that you've already shared it, but I want you to share it again because I think that we all
Yeah.
need to hear it again. What are
Yeah.
you praying for right now that we can join you in prayer about? And would you share your verse again?
I'm always praying for my kids and their journeys and just our family's journey. But for me personally, my agent is right now pitching this book to publishers. So I have this third book that I want to write. It's the one that I outlined for you, just those four kind of stepping stones of God's character. And so just praying that God would open the right doors for a publisher
Mhm.
to take this book forward, if that's his will. And then, yeah, the verse is 1 John 4:18. There's no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. And I just looked up the Message translation. There is no room in love for fear. Well formed love banishes fear. And so I think that's the encouragement, well formed love. Like, what is getting in the way of me experiencing God's love for me every single day? And spend some time really thinking about that and praying about that. How can we open ourselves up more to his amazing love for us?
Yeah, and it circles back to knowing the character of God. If you really
Mhm.
don't know him, it's hard to fathom the amount of love that he truly has because we haven't gotten to know him, and I feel like we play this comparison game of God's love probably looks like my father's love. My
Mhm.
father's love maybe wasn't so great. Okay, God's love, it's got to look like my husband's love, right? I think we start trying to fit him into a box of his love is comparable to maybe another human's love that we are directly woven into life with. And the reality is there is no greater love than the
Right.
love of the Father.
Yeah.
And so I hope there's listeners out there that hear that message from you and hear that you can parent well, even with anxiety, even with guilt,
Yeah.
even with fear, all of the even with you can still
Mhm.
parent well. And I also have shared this with some younger moms, and you probably know this as well. You know what? In all of your weaknesses and all of your I didn't do it right, God's picking up the slack, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's not dismiss, let's give him the credit that where I fail, he flourishes. And where I
Yes.
maybe didn't do it
Yeah.
right, it's going to be all right. It is going to be
Right.
all right. I appreciate the time that we've spent together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. A great conversation.
Thanks so much for listening to The Mom Show with Courtney Doyle. Remember to check the show notes for any links, books, or resources that are mentioned in each episode. We want to be sure this blesses other mothers, and in order to do this, if you're listening via podcast, be sure that you like and share. If you could write a review, that would be fantastic. It helps us get in front of other moms. If you're watching via YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button. This way, you won't ever miss an episode. We want to make sure that we increase our reach to other mothers who need a little encouragement, a community, and a whole lot of Jesus. We're so glad you're here.